Punishments that sound harmless or insignificant at first, but are actually horrific. Story 1. In Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, later copied by Black Mirror and other sci-fi works, there's a fascinating concept called time dilation punishment. The prisoner is tied to a chair, sedated for just one real-world hour, but inside their mind they experience an entire lifetime, usually decades in prison. The best example is the episode Hard Time, where Chief O'Brien lives 20 years in a fake prison inside his head. There's a similar idea in Star Trek, The Next Generation's The Inner Light. Picard lives a whole lifetime in 25 minutes, and in Junji Ito's horror manga Long Dream, where a patient's dreams get longer every night until he lives entire lifetimes while sleeping, waking up with almost no memory of real life. Story 2. When I was a kid in Korea, my parents used a traditional punishment. You had to kneel on the floor with your arms completely raised above your head. It sounds easy, but after 5 minutes your arms are in absolute agony. Sometimes they made it last up to 2 hours. It was supposed to teach discipline and endurance, but back then it felt like pure trauma. Story 3. Tickling can be real torture. It leaves no marks, so some psychiatric hospitals have used it to calm or restrain patients when staff abuse their power. In extreme cases, it causes incontinence, vomiting, and even loss of consciousness because you literally can't breathe properly. For the person doing it, it's easy to keep going because the victim is laughing uncontrollably, so it doesn't feel that bad to the torturer, even though it absolutely is. Story 4. Being declared an outlaw in medieval times wasn't romantic like Robin Hood stories make it seem. It literally meant you were placed outside the protection of the law. Anyone could kill you, rob you, or do whatever they wanted with zero legal consequences. The king or lord would seize your land and possessions, and you had no rights at all. It was a death sentence in slow motion. Story 5. The CIA used to torture people by playing the same song on loop for days, then suddenly skipping or restarting it at random. After 3 days straight, you memorize every single beat and lyric. Your brain normalizes it completely. When the song suddenly skips, your mind freaks out like something is deeply wrong, like seeing a giant cockroach appear out of nowhere. The panic response is insane. Story 6. My grandma told me about her high school boyfriend in the early 1950s. His deeply religious parents found out he was gay, a friend snitched, and punished him by making him kneel on coarse rock salt for hours. He went to school with bleeding, scarred knees. One day, neighbors heard him screaming and crying for 4 straight days. 3 of them watched the house, saw him kneeling on salt all day, and called the police. The father was arrested. Story 7. In the Army, a sadistic sergeant once made 2 soldiers paint rocks as punishment. It backfired. He got hit with one of the harshest administrative punishments I've ever seen. Another guy who neglected his dog was forced to pick up its poop with his bare hands for 2 days and carry it in his pocket during PT. The smell in the sun was unforgettable. The funniest/weirdest was 4 basic trainees who refused to shower. The sergeant made them, still in full uniform and boots, roll down a hill while he hosed them down. All 4 at the same time. It looked ridiculous. Story 8. Early 2000s, there was a huge debate about whether waterboarding was really torture. A radio host who insisted it was no big deal decided to prove it live on air. He let his staff waterboard him. He lasted about 15 seconds before frantically signaling to stop, coughed and choked for another 5 to 10 seconds, then admitted on air that yes, it was absolutely torture and asked for a break to recover. At least he had the guts to admit he was wrong. Story 9. About 30 years ago, before it was a TikTok challenge, I held a block of salt water ice in my closed fist until it melted. The salt ice challenge can cause second and third degree frostbite. It was brutal. Story 10. Solitary confinement is considered torture for a reason. The human brain isn't built to handle zero stimulation or social contact. When I visited Alcatraz and did the audio tour, they lock you in a real solitary cell, total darkness, door closed. You listen to former inmates describe how some of them stayed sane by staring at a tiny speck and imagining a TV screen inside it, playing full movies in their head. Story 11. Remember the Black Mirror episode, White Christmas? Some prisons, I think in Russia or Japan, used white torture. Everything in the cell is pure white. Walls, clothes, food, white rice in a white bowl with white utensils, water in a white cup. No color, no windows. After 2 days, people start hallucinating from lack of visual stimulation. Story 12. My 10-year-old hyperactive cousin drove my aunt crazy one day. Her punishment: he had to sit on his bed and do absolutely nothing. No TV, no phone, no toys, no talking, and no one was allowed in his room. He even begged to be allowed to read his textbook, thinking studying would make her less angry. She said no. He ended up sobbing hysterically, promising he'd never misbehave again. What sounded like a mild punishment completely broke a super energetic kid. Story 13. Chinese water torture. The victim is tied completely still and a single drop of cold or hot water falls on the same spot, usually the forehead, every few seconds. You can see each drop coming. After hours or days, prisoners feel like a hole is being drilled into their skull. Story 14. When I was 6, I messed up and got the choice: peel salty sunflower seeds with my bare hands for hours or get yelled at. I picked the seeds. Huge mistake. After an hour, your fingertips are raw, cracked, burning from the salt, and insanely sensitive. I never chose that punishment again. Story 15. In Ireland during the 1840s Great Famine, the British built thousands of famine walls, or hunger walls. Starving, mostly Catholic, people were forced to build completely useless stone walls miles long just to earn a tiny bit of food. No charity, you had to work. Imagine the soul-crushing feeling of stacking rocks all day for no reason, knowing the wall serves zero purpose just to get soup. Those walls are still all over the Irish countryside. Story 16. If you're found not guilty by reason of insanity, doctors, not a judge, decide when or if you ever get out of the psychiatric facility. A 10-year sentence can become 20, 30, or life. No doctor wants to risk releasing someone who might reoffend, so almost nobody gets out early. You're pumped full of meds with brutal side effects: massive weight gain, constant drowsiness, involuntary movements, and live with severely mentally ill people. It's cleaner and less crowded than regular prison, but still a horrifying way to spend your life. Story 17. When I was 7 to 10, my awful stepdad decided I needed to be more manly. His punishment: sit on the couch all day, no moving, eyes glued to the TV while he played 80s horror movies on loop. Poltergeist, Prince of Darkness, The Evil Dead, etc. A whole week of that as a little kid. I barely slept and was terrified to speak. I love horror now, but that experience definitely messed me up. Story 18. I once had to drop 15 pounds, 7 kilograms, overnight for a wrestling tournament because of a weight class mistake. My head coach told me the old school method. Fill the bathtub with the hottest water I could stand. Add a full box of Epsom salts and rubbing alcohol. Seal the bathroom so no cool air gets in. And sit neck deep for as long as possible. After 60 seconds, I wanted out. I lasted almost 45 minutes, adding boiling water every few minutes. A friend stayed to make sure I didn't pass out or die. It's legitimately dangerous. I sweated off over 11 pounds in that time. Story 19. Emotional ghosting / silent treatment from parents. When I brought home bad grades, they'd scream, then act like I didn't exist for days or weeks, fed me and drove me places, but zero conversation beyond the absolute minimum. I lived in terror of hearing the garage door open because I knew I'd be greeted with silence. Now I'm in college and never tell them anything real about my life. Good grades, failed exams, stress, everything's always fine.